it is RebelKitty and welcome back to my geekdom. On this video, we are going to get a supersized video. We are covering both episodes 3 and 4 of House of the Dragon. I was on vacation last week. I went back home to West Virginia, had an awesome and amazing time, watched episode 3, but unfortunately wasn't able to record the video. So I thought I'll just kind of double up this week and do a supersized episode. So we're going to get to it. Before we do, though, I have to share my Green Council t-shirt that I got from the WB shop online. They have a lot of really cool new House of the Dragon items. Sadly, the video is not sponsored by them, but had to show off my Green Council t-shirt. So, great episodes last week and this week. Really moved the story along the storyline along and had a lot of epic scenes. So let's get to it. First, we're going to talk about episode 3, which is called The Burning Mill. This episode was directed by Geeta Patel. And I have to say, this episode, and I think the second episode, episode 2, was directed by female directors, and I'm loving all the girl power that HBO is pushing right now, so thank you, HBO. But this episode was pivotal for many characters and many reasons. We saw some interesting kind of events unfold. I also really like the pacing of this episode. Some of the things happened off screen that we didn't necessarily need to see, but understood that happened, or maybe even saw the aftermath of, to kind of move the story along. The episode does open with the fight between the Blackwoods and the Brackens, who basically have kind of like this Hatfield and McCoy kind of feud going on, and they exchange words, and then the scene cuts to the aftermath of the battle, and we just see bodies strewn across the battlefield with, of course, the burning mill in the background, where the name of the episode comes from. Cut from this to Dragonstone, where Rhaenyra is standing over the grave of Sir Auric and Sir Eric Cargill. She actually has decided to bury them together. And it's a really poignant scene, very moving, very touching. And in this scene, Rhaenyra also gets counsel from Rhaenys. I have to tell you, Rhaenys is one of my absolute favorite characters in this series. Even though I'm Team Green, my heart bleeds green. Love Rhaenys, because Rhaenys, as I've always said, her and Corlys are often the only two adults in the room at times, and she gives Rhaenyra some words to think on. She's basically saying, you know, there is no worse of a war between family, between dragons. And where did this all start? And she brought up several episodes. You know, did it start with the death of Luke? Or can we go all the way back to the loss of Aemon's eye? I mean, you know, years now in the past. So she has this very poignant moment with Rhaenyra at the graveside of the Cargills, and I thought it was a very moving and touching scene, and kind of underscores that voice of reason and that Rhaenys always brings to the table, the wise counsel that she gives to Rhaenyra. We cut from that to a scene between Alicent and Helena. This was a very interesting, kind of dynamic between those two. Again, you see me looking down because I'm consulting the trusty notebook here. But basically, they have a talk about grief, and Helena is saying, you know, maybe people that she saw during the procession feels they have more right to grieve over their lost children than she does because she is queen. And basically Alicent is saying, no, you're a mother too, and you have every right to your grief as well. And it ends with Helena looking at Alicent, her mom, and saying, I forgive you. And I was like, girl, for what? For not being a great mom? You know, are you forgiving her for something that has already happened? Or, as we know, Helena is a dreamer. Are you forgiving her for something that has yet to happen? We don't know. And unfortunately, they did not pick up that storyline. We did not have a Helena scene in episode 4. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. Another pivotal scene in episode 3 is when Rhaenyra makes the very hard decision to send her young children away from Dragonstone. I think at this point she has basically realized that war truly is inevitable. So to kind of get them out of the line of fire, so to speak, she decides to send them away. I'm sure this was a hard decision. This was very painful for her. We even had a scene of her crying over her children's toys after they had left Dragonstone. But she charges Rhaena with this duty. And I gotta feel bad for Rhaena in all this. I mean, I feel like Rhaena feels like she is marginalized. And basically they're like, okay, get out of here and try to go do something useful because you don't have a dragon, so you're really not useful to us. I hate that because I love her character. I love Bela's character. I wish they would do more with the sisters. I mean, these sisters could literally have their own series themselves, I think. But, you know, Rhaena kind of feels this. She feels, I think, sadness over not having a dragon. And now I think she feels a little resentful toward Rhaenyra for sending her away. Rhaenyra, however, puts it to her as, you know, not only are you guarding my children, but you are guarding the future of this house. We do see 4 dragon eggs being sent with Rhaena, and she instructs Rhaena to write the Prince of Pentos to ask if he will accept Rhaena back into that country and find a safe harbor for her and Rhaenyra's children. It's interesting about those 4 eggs. Geeta Patel, who is the director of this episode, it confirmed it. And I had a suspicion when I was watching this episode that 3 of those 4 eggs that are shown going with Rhaenyra, too many R names, Rhaena and the children, those are going to be Dany's babies. I had a teared up moment when that happened because I looked at them and I was like, of course, there is a black and red egg, there is a golden egg, there's a green egg, and there's a blue egg. We don't know what happens to the blue eggs. Maybe it will hatch. We don't know. We don't know that part yet. But 3 of those eggs in that little dragon egg warming case they send with Rhaena, those eventually will become Daenerys's dragons of Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserys. Vagal. Like I said, such a cool Easter egg that they put in. Now we know how the eggs got to Pentos, and then eventually they'll find their way to Dany in some years in the future, but just such a great scene and an awesome, awesome Easter egg to include in this episode. There's also some other individuals we either have met or meet in this episode that we heard the term dragon seed be used for the first time. Now, the dragon seeds are individuals that are somehow connected to a Valyrian family, either the Targaryens or the Velaryons, and they have old Valyria blood in their veins. We have met Hugh the Hammer. We have met Alan of Hall and his brother, and we have also now met Ulf the White, who features prominently in a scene in the tavern in this episode. I think we're going to be seeing more of these dragon seeds, but that remains to be seen. Here's my dragon seed right here. This is my little Siggy, the Viking cat. Siggy's upset a little bit because it's been storming a little here today, so she's like, hold me and love on me. It's okay. Hang on. I know. I'll put you down. Also in this scene, we have a very pivotal scene between Aemond and Aegon, the brothers. It's a very interesting scene. I'm not going to go into all of that, but we basically see Aegon enter the tavern. He eventually ends up in a brothel in the Street of Silk, and he's looking for a Madame Sylvie or Sissy or Sylvie. He can't really remember the name. Well, he walks in basically on Aemon in Madame Sylvie's arms and begins to basically humiliate Aemond. And the look on Aemon's face in this scene, first you see the deep humiliation that he has suffered basically his whole life at the hands of Aegon. And Aegon just continues. He doesn't stop. I mean, his friends are there. He's drunk. So he just continues on and on and on, and he won't let up. And I have to give mad props to Ewan Mitchell in this scene. I love you to death, man, and the bravery that you have. But for Aemon, the character, to show this, I understood why they constructed the scene, why they did. It's almost like as Aegon is continuing to taunt Aemon, a switch is flipped. And you see kind of the glint of steel enter Aemon's eye. And it's like I said, a switch is flipped. And I thought, during that scene, Aegon, you need to back off, because you have now made an enemy of your brother, the person who you should be the closest to. But in terms of construction of how the scene was handled, I know some people are freaking out about it. Personally, I think it was a right choice for Aemon's character, because he basically walked out of there owning it, saying, you can say what you want to me. I don't care. I don't care what you say. I am me. I'm gonna do me, and good for him. So that's gonna be interesting to see how that plays out as well. Also, speaking of one of my favorite characters, Aemon, some of you have asked me where this beautiful piece of art has come from on my wall. This is actually my sewing room in my house. And so this piece of Aemon art was made by a lady it's called Art by Ana Miguel Mendes, and she is an artist from Portugal. And she has an Instagram as well as a webpage, and I will link those to this video, because she makes this beautiful, beautiful Aemon art. I purchased this piece from her, and I found a black frame to put it in, because I thought that was very appropriate, since Aemon really loves wearing his Targaryen blacks, and hung it here on my wall in my sewing room. So I really enjoy having him here, and I've talked to her several times through Instagram, and she is just a lovely person and a gifted artist. So please go check her out. She has other pieces as well from House of the Dragon and other fandoms. She's done some Star Wars pieces, she's done some Marvel pieces, but she has several Aemon pieces, which I just love. I told her one day, I said this piece and another piece that I don't have a print of yet, I said I just want to wallpaper my house with them, because they're just so beautiful. So again, art by Ana Miguel Mendes. Again, I will link her below, and shout out to you, Anna. Thank you so much for this beautiful piece of Aemon art. I just love him, and thank you for sharing your talents with us. So episode 3 ends on a rather epic note. It's not epic in terms of a battle happening, which we'll see the next episode, but epic in terms of what does take place. We see a meeting between, in person, Rhaenyra and Alicent in King's Landing at the Sept. This was arranged, of course, through the help of Mysaria, the White Worm, who's actually starting to feature rather prominently in the show, which did kind of happen and alluded to in the book, but they're kind of fleshing out her character. But she arranges this, and Rhaenyra goes to King's Landing to try to talk to Alicent in an effort to try to sue for peace, and also, I feel, try to find out what was on her dad's mind in his final hours, since she knows Alicent was with him. So she sneaks into King's Landing dressed as a septa, which I have flashbacks to Game of Thrones and the whole shame, shame, shame episode. But she meets Alicent in the Sept while she's at prayer, and asks her basically, you've talked to my father, what was he thinking? Did he say my name? And they have this rather interesting conversation, but basically Alicent tells her that he spoke the name Aegon, to which, of course, Alicent took it to mean her son, her eldest son. And then she alludes to Aegon's dream. And at that, Rhaenyra, you see her eyes go wide, and she's like, he told you of the Song of Ice and Fire. And Alicent is like, what? She had no clue what was going on. And Rhaenyra said, he is referring to Aegon the Conqueror. And the scene was so well crafted. And the actors did such a phenomenal job. Olivia Cook and Emma Darcy. Just an amazing job by both of these actors. And just the look of shock on Allison's face where she realizes, oh no, I've messed up. And I've messed up big time. And you see this cross her face. And Rhaenyra sees it too. But basically, I think Allison realizes they're too far gone. They are too far down this path. It's going to end in war. There's nothing that they can do to change it. And Allison starts to maintain, no, she meant Aegon, my son, and that's why he's on the throne. And she basically gets up and leaves. But it's an interesting turn of events for both characters because I feel like Allison figures out, hey, wait a minute, I didn't really know after all what Viserys was saying or meaning by when he spoke the name Aegon with his close to final breath. And Rhaenyra figures out in this moment that they truly are on a path to war. And I think this conversation just goes to embolden her to make some of the decisions she makes next episode and will have to make in the future. So probably not the outcome either character wanted, but in this scene it does have a great purpose. This episode was, like I said, just so chock full of so many instances like that. A lot of people were complaining online, oh, it didn't have a lot of action. Well, sometimes you have to have episodes where it moves the storyline along so we can get to the places where there are action that we are going to see that happens in episode 4. So on to episode 4. I have to say and be honest with y'all, if I had to pick, if you had to like absolutely say you have to pick one, I think thus far in the series, this has been, episode 4 has been my favorite episode to date. If I had to pick, now, granted, we still have 4 more episodes to go. So we're halfway through the season, which also kind of makes me a little sad. But this has just been so epic. And this episode was just so amazing on so many levels. If you are a reader of the book of Fire and Blood, you will know that they followed very, very close, at least the battle part, the Battle of Rook's Rest, in this episode to the book. It was very faithful to the book. So such an amazing episode. Very epic. We saw a dragon fight on screen for the very first time. Whoa. I mean, I was like cheering. I was crying. I was throwing things across the room. Siggy was hiding behind the couch. I was yelling things at the TV. I mean, I've had to watch this episode probably 3 or 4 times by now. And I think I've missed details. But just so epic and so jam-packed with so many good things. Phenomenal episode. Directed by Alan Taylor, who's actually directed season 2's episode 1 and also directed several pivotal episodes for the original series of Game of Thrones. So he knows his way around Westeros and he brought his directorial prowess to this episode. So let's get into it. So let's start with Daemon still at Harrenhal. Y'all, I don't know what's going on with that man. He's either having dreams or he's having visions, but Harrenhal or somebody or something is messing with this man's mind. He is seeing, he sees young Rhaenyra on the Iron Throne, and then he promptly chops off her head, which she still talks to him in High Valyrian. He sees his dead wife Laena at one point pouring wine at the table. We see him have a much more extended conversation with Alice Rivers, which personally made me so happy. I have been so excited to see Alice Rivers. She has always fascinated me. I have an original cosplay of her, which I've shared some of the photos of her on my channel here and over on TikTok, but I love this character. She's wrapped in mystery and misery at times. We don't really know what she is. Is she a witch? Is she a priestess? A red priestess? Is she, is she older than what she seems? Is she younger than what she seems? we don't know. We don't know. We don't know a lot about her. She's very much shrouded in mystery. So they have this really great conversation. She gives Damon something to drink. Don't know what's in it, but obviously he's tripping at one point. So I especially love the scene where he thinks he's chasing what he thinks is Aemond down the hall, because you see a very tall figure with long white hair with an eye patch with a torch going down the hallways of Harrenhal. And at one point, this figure turns around and looks at Damon, and it's basically Damon dressed as Aemond. It was very surreal. It was a very like Empire Strikes Back moment where Luke is in the cave, but yet Vader comes out and he smashes his head off, and then the mask falls away and it's Luke inside the Vader. So it's kind of like an Empire Strikes Back moment there. Just some crazy, crazy things are happening at Harrenhal. It's going to be interesting to me how that storyline is resolved. Will Damon eventually flee? Will he give it up? What is the point of all this? And we don't know yet. This episode, he's trying to win, lands and men toward the black side, but he's having a lot of trouble with either people being not willing to join them, or with Harrenhal or somebody, maybe Alice, we don't know, messing with his mind. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this all plays out. And staying with the blacks, we're going to cut back over to Dragonstone. We see the Black War Council assembled around the map table. And then eventually Rhaenyra is going to return into this scene and basically gets scolded by Jace, her son, of, where have you been? We're kind of trying to fight a war here, and you go skipping off to who knows where. And she reveals to them that basically she has gone to King's Landing to try to talk to Alicent and talk her out of war. Real side note, I found it very interesting that Alicent went to try to talk her out, Rhaenyra, to try to talk Alicent out of war, but yet she brings nothing to the table. She didn't offer a dragon. She didn't offer, Jace's hand in marriage, or one of her other children. I just thought that was interesting, and a glimpse into Rhaenyra's mindset, maybe, of, well, I speak and maybe it will all happen then. I don't know. I just thought that was interesting that she didn't take anything with her to barter with at the table. Maybe Alicent would have been more open. We don't know. Anyway, all that is done. She tells them, I went to talk to her. Jace is furious at this, and rightly so, and says, you could have been captured, you could have been killed. And basically Rhaenyra shares with them that, I now know war is inevitable. I now know we have to go to war. It's going to be bloody. And, the Greens are massing their men at certain places. They're overtaking castles and gaining more lands and men and armies to their side. So she has to end up sending a dragon. And Jace, of course, offers to go, but of course then Rhaenys speaks up and says, well, of course you have to send me and Meleys. Which, again, if you've read the books, you kind of know this had to happen. Again, very, very sad outcome, but we'll get to that in a minute. Cut over to the Green Council. We cut over there and see that King Aegon is not having a good day. He's very unhappy with his council. He finds out things have been happening in the field that he has not been privy to. Conversations about making decisions or even finding out information until after the fact. And he's really furious at this. And I gotta say, again, major props to Tom Glenn Carney, who plays Aegon, or Egg, as I like to call him, and Ewan Mitchell, who plays Aemond. They have this natural brotherly connection, which if you've ever seen interviews with both of them, you can see that. But this scene is phenomenal. And Aemond owned this scene. He basically gets up during the council, walks to the Moor map, demonstrates why Rook's Rest is so important. Aegon had been pressing for a direct move to Harrenhal. Aemond refutes this and says, no, we need to take Rook's Rest, get more men on our side, get a bigger army behind us with dragons flying behind. And they have this awesome interchange in High Valyrian, and Aegon is dumbfounded, and I love it. I'm here for it. Aemon starts speaking fluently, beautifully. You can tell who paid attention during their lessons as young boys. And he basically is taunting Aegon and humiliating him, kind of like Aegon did in the last episode with Aemon, in front of his council. Of course, they really don't have any clue what they're saying because they're speaking in High Valyrian. But this scene was perfection. I loved it. And like I said, Aemon owned it. And we see that kind of like snarky Aemon and the villain that we all know and love. It's his villain era, and I am here for it. And it just was such a cool scene. So basically he says, okay, what do you want us to do? And Aegon like trips over his words and he's like, I'm gonna make a war, I guess, you know, and basically it's Aemon that decides what they're going to do, which basically leads to the Battle of Rook's Rest. But such a well-crafted scene, and it was kind of nice to see Aemon finally get a little bit of revenge on Aegon. So after going into complaining to his mom a little bit, we see what Aegon is prone to doing. Basically, he gets liquored up and then decides to go out on Sunfire, his dragon. It was a cool scene, I thought, when he goes to the dragon pit and Sunfire comes up to Aegon, kind of bumps him in his chest, and he pats the face of Sunfire. I'm like, it's really cool to see that bond that they had. But this is all setting up and leading into the Battle of Rook's Rest, which is the main centerpiece of this episode. Basically, Christian Cole has been leading out the forces for the Greens, along with Sir Gawain, Alicent's brother, Sir Gawain Hightower. And basically, at the beginning of this, you see them massing in the woods around Rook's Rest, the castle, and Cole turns to a couple of his archers and says, send the signal. So basically we see there is a pre-agreed upon signal between him and Aemond, who is on Vhagar, hiding in the woods pretty far away, because let's face it, she's a big old dragon and you gotta hide pretty far away to hide her. And you see a couple horns being blown to alert Aemond, hey, it's time to bring Vhagar in, we're ready to attack. In the meantime, we see in the woods Vhagar is starting to rise up, Aemon on the Vhagar's back, and he looks up in time to see his brother, liquored up Aegon, flying overhead on Sunfire, to which he calls him an idiot in High Valyrian, which I personally love. I'm gonna have to learn that word, and tells Vhagar to wait. No, he said, we're not going. You need to wait. And with a huff, begrudgingly, she lays back down. In the meantime, we also see Rhaenys and Meleys, her dragon, the Red Queen, enter the area. And they see each other, her as well as Aegon, and they start to fly toward her. Now, this scene, like I said, I keep using the word epic. I don't think that's big enough, but this is really the first time we have seen an all-out dragon battle. It was so well done and so well crafted. Meleys and Sunfire meet with their riders on their back. We see Meleys start to scratch Sunfire and tear at her wing. She gets injured in the process, but recovers. And Aegon flies Sunfire back around. They start meeting again, but in the meantime, we see all these people looking to the sky, yelling, dragon, dragon, and it's Vhagar. Basically, Aemon has now decided to bring Vhagar and enter the battle, flies directly toward Meleys and Rhaenys, but also his brother Aegon and Sunfire, yells Dracarys, and sees Vhagar shoot this enormous fireball that burns both Aegon Sunfire, but also Meleys and Rhaenys. It is after this that we see Sunfire is really badly hurt, and the dragon tumbles to the ground with Aegon still in the saddle on her back and lands somewhere in the woods. Just very epic, but also gut-wrenching in a way. Again, just hearing the dragons kind of claw at each other and scream, it was very well crafted and well done. Aemon then, we see him start looking around and fly up. We see Rhaenys. She is badly burned. She has kind of like black soot on her face and she looks really tired. We know that Meleys is injured at this point. They're trying to find Aemon, but they don't see him in Vhagar, which is really hard to believe because Vhagar is so huge. But anyway, Vhagar comes up from behind basically and grabs Meleys by the neck and just starts biting down and ends up killing Meleys. And I gotta tell you all, the look between Meleys and Rhaenys, Meleys kind of turned her head back and looked at Rhaenys before she shut her eyes and died. I mean, I was like ugly crying at that point. Because like I said, even though I bleed green, love me some Rhaenys, you know, the queen that never was. She really should have been queen in my opinion. But that's neither here nor there at this point. But we do see after this poignant look pass between the two that Meleys begins to fall from the sky. Rhaenys, knowing that there's really no way out of this, she's going to die, sacrifice her life, falls back with Meleys into the castle there at Rook's Rest. An epic death for two epic queens. And just, you know, mad props to Eve Best. I love her. She's a phenomenal actress. Did such an amazing job bringing the character of Rhaenys alive. So thank you for that and this wonderful epic scene. After this scene, we then cut over to Cole. He has been knocked off his horse and he's lying unconscious on the ground. He wakes up. He's disoriented. He acts as if the wind has been knocked out of him. And I mean, who wouldn't? But then he remembers, oh wait, Aegon, the king, has fallen from the sky. So he begins stumbling toward this tree line that he enters. And as he enters, he sees kind of this tangled heap that is Sunfire. And then he sees Aemond standing there. And it's a very interesting shot. Aemond has his sword out of his scabbard. It is not fully drawn, but it is out of his scabbard and he's starting to walk towards Sunfire and Aegon. And many people, a lot of talk and chatter online. Many people have asked, is he going to finish off Sunfire? Is he going to finish off Aegon? Is he going to finish off them both? Clearly he had something in mind. And that's another thing what I love about Aemond. You never quite know what he's thinking. And the actor, Ewan Mitchell, even makes this point in many of his interviews, that, you know, you never quite know what's going on behind that eye. But there's always wheels turning. So Cole sees this and shouts, Aemond, to which Aemond kind of half turns, sees Cole, and sheathes his sword. So don't quite know what Aemond's intent was here. I think I have an idea, but who knows? I could be right or I could be wrong. Don't want to quite voice that yet. But in the meantime, Aemond in this scene bends down. He picks up the cat's paw dagger, which is a sign of kingship, and holds on to it. And Cole asks him, where is the king? To which Aemond points with the dagger. And we never see Aegon fully in this scene. We kind of see him tucked a little bit behind Sunfire's wing. But the reaction that Cole has, he basically just falls to his knees, realizing that the king has been badly injured in some way, more than likely has been burnt as well. At least if they stick to the book, that has happened. But probably we'll see in the next episode. But Aemond, in the interim, he just gets up and walks away. He's like, done, getting out of here. But with that cat's paw dagger. That's a little bit of foreshadowing too. And I'm very excited to see how that plays out. So that is how the episode ends. Again, just such a powerful episode, such a powerful way to end it. It's setting up some interesting storylines, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out in episode 5. So that is the end of episode 4. To me, in my opinion, this was the strongest episode we've had this season to date. And quite frankly, to me, harkens back to peak Game of Thrones storytelling and just epicness, seeing the battles, seeing lots of extras being used. You know, this epic fight in the sky between these three dragons, just so well done and so well crafted. By the way, there's also an accompanying series on HBO if you get either the channel or HBO Max, which my video is not sponsored, by the way. So it's called The House That Dragons Built. So they're basically 20-minute episodes you can watch after each episode airs that gives you kind of a behind the scenes look at each episode. I watched the one for season 4. It's amazing. They show how they did the buckwork for the dragons and actually putting the actors on the backs of the dragons and filming the battle scenes and creating scenes so they look real and believable. Highly recommend if you get a chance. Check it out. Also, as I said, very excited to see when our boy Aemon picks up that cat's paw dagger. If many of you have read the book, you know he will proclaim himself Prince Regent to basically rule in Aegon's stead, never fully declaring himself king, but the closest thing to it, while Aegon is incapacitated. So we'll probably see that storyline play out the next episode. And it's also going to be interesting to see how the Blacks respond and what Rhaenyra does. I was writing some notes after the episode in ye old green notebook, and it said it's going to be interesting to see how each side handles the gains and the losses, because I feel like each side has gotten something but also lost something this episode. Basically, the Blacks, of course, have lost Rhaenys and Meleys. I mean, Meleys was their biggest dragon. Rhaenys was their voice of reason, kind of like that little Jiminy Cricket, conscious, trying to, talk sense into some of these people. So it will be interesting to see the repercussions. It's going to be interesting to see how Corlys reacts to this. I mean, I think he's one of these people that's genuinely in love with his wife. So to see him process his grief is going to be interesting. But through this episode, we have seen they have gained a queen of action. And by that, of course, I mean Rhaenyra. She's basically solidified in her mind they're on a path to war. For the Greens, of course, they've lost a king, but now they're going to gain a Prince Regent. So that's going to be interesting to see. And they're also gaining more men and lands to their side, basically bolstering their cause and really amassing a very large army. So how's that going to be playing out while a Prince Regent is reigning rather than the king? Albeit a weak king, but still a king nonetheless. So a lot of really cool things are setting up here. It's going to be interesting to see how they delve in and develop those storylines. And I'm just so enjoying this season. I hope you are too. The next episode, episode 5, will air this coming Sunday night on HBO. Very excited for that. I hope you've enjoyed this supersized video of recap of episode 3 and 4 of season 2 of House of the Dragon. If you've enjoyed this, please give me a thumbs up and hit that little bell icon so you're notified anytime I post a video. Also, you can follow me on social media. I'm found at RebelKitty Cosplay on Facebook and Instagram, and you can find me at RebelKitty Ginkdom on TikTok. So enjoy. I hope everyone is doing well. Stay safe out there. Be creative, and peace, love, and dragons.